What if everything you know about your subject is actually working against you right now? I know that sounds completely backwards, but stay with me for just a second. Because I spent years in a college classroom convinced that the more I knew, the more persuasive I'd be. But guess what? I was wrong. Spectacularly, embarrassingly wrong. And today I'm going to show you exactly how deep expertise can become your biggest communication liability and the one dead simple rule that fixes all of it. Welcome back to Speaking with Confidence, the podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on a journey to becoming a powerful communicator. All right, so here's what I want you to picture. You're sitting in a conference room or maybe a Zoom call, because that's just life right now, and the presenter has a resume that takes 5 minutes to skim. Advanced degrees, big titles, years of experience, all the credentials. And then they open their mouth. And within 90 seconds, you're mentally composing your grocery list. Sound familiar? Yeah. I've been that presenter. For years, in front of lecture halls, classrooms, and even on stages, convinced that if I just threw enough information at my students, something would stick. But it didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. And this is what I call the expert trap. And today, we're breaking down the 5 specific ways it shows up in presentations. And then I'm handing you the one rule that cuts through all of it. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first one is the sneakiest of the 5, because you literally cannot feel it even happening. It's called the curse of knowledge. It's an actual cognitive bias. And here's what it does. Once your brain has done the hard work of mastering a subject, it forgets what it felt like to not understand it. So you start your explanations in the middle of the story. You use jargon because those are just the words that you think in. And you assume your audience has context they absolutely do not have. And I see this constantly with people presenting research or a new product. They're so deep in the technical details, the methodology, the code architecture, the financial model, that they skip right to chapter 7. They never explain why any of it matters or what problem it actually solves. And then the audience checks out in about 90 seconds. And here's a tell. If you've ever caught yourself saying, "It's simple, basically," or, "To put it plainly," that's your brain making a desperate attempt to bridge a gap it can't even see anymore. Those phrases are a dead giveaway. The fix isn't about dumbing things down. It's about mapping the journey. Walk all the way back to the starting line. Find the moment right before you learn this and begin there. Your job is to be a guide, not a teleporter. But even if you nail the journey, you can still bury the whole path under a pile of unnecessary detail. Trap number 2 is data drowning. You're using slides as a crutch and not a compass. And this one is kind of personal for me. When I was teaching, I had slides with 10-point font and full of paragraphs and text. I'm talking walls of information. And I genuinely believed, I truly, sincerely believed that those crowded slides proved I had done the work and that I was prepared. All they actually proved was that I knew how to use copy and paste. Here's what's really happening when your audience sees a slide like that. They don't think, "Wow, this person is thorough." They think, "I have no idea what I'm supposed to focus on." And you've handed them a haystack and asked them to find the needle on their own time while you keep talking. The fix is non-negotiable. It should be one idea per slide. That's it. Think of your slide like a billboard on a highway, not a page in a textbook. One image, one number, one bold statement. All the nuance and detail, that comes from you, out loud. The slide is just a compass pointing everyone in the same direction. John Maxwell talks about this in what he calls the law of connection. You actually have to connect with people before you can lead them. And you cannot connect with a paragraph. A wall of data is a physical barrier between you and the room, which leads us straight into the next trap. Trap number 3 is the lecture loop, talking at people instead of with them. So you've mapped the journey, you've cleaned up the slides, and now you have to actually stand up and deliver the thing. The lecture loop is that one-way information dump where you just talk for 30 minutes straight. No pauses, no check-ins, no moments where you actually connect with human beings sitting in front of you. It's the default setting for a lot of academics, and yes, I'm absolutely talking about myself, and it's the fastest way to lose a room. When you let an uninterrupted stream of expertise flow at people, you turn your presentation into a monotonous loop. You're not presenting anymore. You're performing at a wall, and the audience can feel that distance. The antidote is to build in moments of genuine exchange. Ask a question and actually wait for the answer. Make eye contact. Pause long enough to let an idea land. Presentations are conversations. Even when you're the only one talking, the room should feel like it's with you, not watching you. Trap number 4 is the jargon jet lag. Speaking a language no one else is using. Understand, jargon isn't the enemy. I want to be clear about that. Inside the right room, technical language is efficient and precise. The problem starts when you use it as a status signal instead of a communication tool. Words like synergy, leverage, and impactful, using them to prove you belong in the room, usually does the exact opposite. It builds the wall. It makes you sound like an insider with a secret password, and it makes your audience feel like they missed the memo. I use a filter I call the Gen Z intern test. When I'm putting the talk together, I imagine a sharp, recent graduate who doesn't know the industry yet. If they wouldn't naturally say that word while explaining something to a friend at a coffee shop, I cut it. Don't say utilize when use works. Don't say impactful when you mean effective. That layer of corporate speak doesn't make you sound sophisticated. It makes it look like you're hiding behind a fancy vocabulary. All of which brings us to the one rule that fixes all 4 of these traps at once. And we've talked about it before. It's the 8th grade rule. Every time you design a slide or write a sentence, ask yourself, could a typical 8th grader explain this main point back to someone else after hearing it just once? Not every technical detail, just the central idea and why it matters. If the answer is no, you're not ready to step in front of an audience yet. Clear ideas are the only real authority you need. But there's one last trap, and it does more damage than any buzzword ever could. Here's trap 5. The impenetrable persona hiding behind the expert title. And this is the big one. And honestly, it might be the most relatable one too. The impenetrable persona happens when you treat your expert title like a suit of armor. You stop being a person and start performing the role of the expert. Every sentence comes out as a final decree. No doubts, no gaps, no room for error. And here's the thing. People can sense manufactured confidence from across the room. It doesn't read as strength. It reads as either arrogance or deep insecurity, and sometimes both. We grew up thinking real authority meant having the perfect answer ready at all times. But that's not how the world works, and your audience knows it. True authority, the kind that actually makes people trust you, comes from having a reliable process for finding the truth. The most powerful thing you can say to a group isn't a flawless recitation of facts. It's the honest admission, I don't know the answer to that yet, but here's exactly how I'd figure it out. And that builds more genuine trust than any polished bluff ever could. Think about the most respected leader you've ever worked for. Chances are they weren't the one with the slick answer for everything. They were the one who could admit when they were wrong, ask for other perspectives, and stay transparent when they were stepping into new territory. And Tim Elmer calls this listening like you're wrong. It means you enter every conversation holding your understanding lightly, knowing it might be incomplete. And that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's the only thing that actually creates a real connection and tears down the walls these traps actually build. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that's a concept I come back to again and again because it sits at the heart of everything that we teach here. So let's bring it all together. The 5 traps. The curse of knowledge, data drowning, the lecture loop, the jargon jet lag, and the impenetrable persona. All 5 of them have one thing in common. They put your expertise ahead of your audience. The fix? The 8th grade rule. Apply it to every slide, every sentence, every word choice. It forces a level of clarity that cuts through all the noise and turns your deep knowledge into something people can actually use. Stop preparing to impress. Start preparing to connect. Those are not the same thing. And the moment you make that shift, everything changes. That's all for today. Remember, we're looking for progress, not perfection. Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, The Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Forming for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change your world. We'll talk to you next time.